The human heart is divided into four chambers. You've got a right and a left side, and you have a ventricle and an atrium on both sides. So, this is a normal pathway. Deoxygenated blood will come from the vena cava into the right atrium, which will travel through the right ventricle and then to the pulmonary artery. In between the right atrium and the right ventricle, you have the tricuspid valve, and then um, see if I can make this. Here we go. So right atrium to right ventricle through the tricuspid valve right here. And then the pulmonary artery will take the blood to the lungs. And then from the lungs, it'll come back to the heart on the left side through the pulmonary vein. Because remember, veins take blood to the heart and arteries take away from the heart. So at the left atrium, you will then travel through the mitral valve into the left ventricle. The left ventricle also has lots of muscle in order to cause pressure so that blood can go through the aortic valve into the aorta, which is the great artery. The aorta will then send blood to the rest of the body, and then eventually that blood will come back again through the superior and inferior vena cava. So, kind of to look at the valves, you've got the tricuspid, pulmonary, mitral, and aortic. Tricuspid is between the right atrium and the right ventricle. Pulmonary is between the right ventricle and the pulmonary artery and lungs. Then the blood will come from the lungs to the left atrium, and then through the left atrium to the left ventricle, it'll have the mitral valve. The aortic valve is between the left ventricle and the aorta. The left has to be thicker because of pressure. So usually blood will go from the atrium to the ventricle. Right is tricuspid pulmonary, left is mitral aortic, RTP LMA. Systole is, let's see right here. Yeah, vena cava to right to left, aorta, atrium, and then ventricle. Um, Systole is contraction of the heart muscles, and diastole is relaxation of the heart muscles. Arteries are thick and they take blood away from the heart. Capillaries are the really, really tiny, thin sites of gas exchange, and veins are thin and take blood back to the heart. Um, There's different types of blood cells. Erythrocyte are your normal oxygen-carrying cells. They only carry hemoglobin. Hemoglobin. They're going to lack other organelles, such as a nucleus and ribosomes. You have leukocytes, which are formed in the blood marrow, and this is really important in immunity. So immunity, there's two types. There's innate and adaptive. Adaptive is the memory cells, and basically these are triggered by a antigen, whereas innate is usually just a first line of defense, cell mediated responses. So basically, the whole circulation, here's what you're going to have. So you'll always start with the right ventricle, and this will be pulmonary circulation. So the right atrium will have blood go to the right ventricle, and then oxygen will um, go to the lungs, and then it'll come back to the left atrium, and from the left atrium, the blood is pumped to the aorta. So the aorta sends the blood to the body, and the blood will return back to the heart through the vena cava. And again, heart will send blood to the lungs through the pulmonary trunk. The lub, usually whenever you listen to the heart, you'll hear lub dub. The lub is the tricuspid and the mitral valves closing. And the dub is the pulmonary and aortic valves closing. So lub, I think you can think of as LTM, and dub is DPA, or DAP.